In sports, if you want to be the best, there are no off days.
Welcome into the No Off Days podcast. Scott Smith, Chris Cato, returning after a week away. And, of course, we come into this week's episode with heavy hearts, going out to the communities, especially those affected mostly by Hurricane Ian, just south of us here. And if you would like to get involved and feel like it's on your heart to contribute and help in any way, the Florida Disaster Fund is the state's official fund, and you can visit it at volunteerflorida.org. Chris, we still march on, and we have a fun show planned here today.
Yeah, we do. I want to say one thing about volunteerflorida.org, too. You can also not only donate money, you can also volunteer for various relief things that are going to be ongoing for weeks there.
Okay, so financial and physical involvement. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, let's head into the broom closet. Producer Brian King joins us now. And, BK, let's give the nod potters, the nod Pododians, the Nodpodites, a look at the rundown here today. What do we got?
Got a pretty good show, I think. We got Phil Esposito. You know, this is the 30th anniversary. Hard to believe. 30 years. The Lightning's been around. He'll join us, and you guys are going to have a tough time pulling stories out of him because he doesn't.
Right.
If you know Phil, he doesn't talk too much.
Kind of shy, yeah.
And then got a Hall of Fame at the end of the block, a unique Hall of Fame that's come up that get your thoughts on.
A unique Hall of Fame,
yeah,
like a different sport.
Could be, not necessarily a sport, but you know, there's a Hall of Fame for just about everything. This Hall of Fame,
Is it a podcast Hall of Fame? Are we nominated already? Wow.
I think you got to get through at least 4 episodes.
Yeah, we got to.
Or have more than 4 subscribers.
Right.
What an honor. I can't wait to find out what this mystery Hall of Fame is.
Yes, it's a mystery.
Right. Well, if you want to put us in the podcasting Hall of Fame, here's how you can at least subscribe if you are watching to today's show. You go to fox13news.com/nodpod if you're watching and you want to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, all the ways that you can get the podcast on audio form. And if you want to just point your camera at the TV scene, if you're watching right now, you can point at the little QR code on the screen, and that'll take you inside the magical portal, the wardrobe, to a Narnia-like existence there on the interwebs where you can learn all about the Nod Pod. So, all right, Chris, we come into this show, and, of course, the topic du jour is a big landmark home run last night by one Aaron Judge, reaching 62,
finally
surpassing Roger Maris.
Thank goodness he's no longer going to be interrupting my college football games with his
no more cut-ins.
Home run chase. Yeah. No, it's great. Glad he got it out of the way. He's an incredible player, having an incredibly historic season. I got a little tired of the chase. I think there wasn't as much interest in it as Major League Baseball would like there to have been, you know, outside of Yankees fans. And part of that, I think, is Major League's MLB's fault in a way that made this record almost irrelevant in a way because...
How so?
Well, you have at the top, if you look at the MLB record book, and there's no sport that defines itself more on its history and stats and records than baseball. But if you look in the MLB book, you still see Barry Bonds 73, McGuire 70. I just wish that MLB had been more proactive back in the day and you know, like the Olympic committees and banning certain substances, or proactively, you know, taking these guys off the book.
Well, we can't go back in the Wayback Machine and change things, but you know, this is obviously an American League record, not a Major League record. Barry Bonds still holds that, however big that asterisk might be. So there are folks ahead of him, but I think with the implementation that Major League Baseball has made in terms of trying to clean the game up from substances, I think that this is a moment to celebrate.
Okay,
someone that has done it clean, and someone will be celebrating especially hard.
Yeah,
an individual in Arlington, Texas, that caught that 60-second home run ball. He was immediately escorted out of the building. They're saying that this thing could fetch up to $2 million. That may be the starting point.
I think he's already got an offer from a company for $2 million.
$2 million on the table.
Yeah. Did you see how tightly he was clutching that? He wouldn't even let the camera see it. It was like me when I used to live in Philadelphia and hold my wallet on the L train. Like you know, no one needs to see that and get out of there. But that was incredible. And I wonder. I mean, he obviously went to the game, bought a ticket in that area for that reason.
You got to think so.
What a great investment.
I think you hold on to it for a little bit. Let the asking price
Not until
go up.
next season, though, in case Judge has an even, or someone else has an even better season.
Yeah, I think it's still a seller's market. I don't know how quickly you got to get rid of it, but I don't take the first offer on the table.
Oh no, the guy that had McGuire's 70th home run ball, he could have sold it at the time for $250,000, which was a lot in 1998. Held on to it for a few years, and wow, I think he fetched like $2,500 for it or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it was a different time, as you've already appropriately mentioned. Speaking of great falls from great heights to maybe suffer some type of head injury, in the NFL, the talk right now is the concussions that have picked up because of what has happened to Tua Tagovailoa in concussion protocol as we speak. Within the span of 4 days, suffers what appeared initially on that last Sunday against the Bills to be a head injury as he tries to get up. He falls and kind of loses his balance, a little mobility, mechanical issue there. But they had cleared him at the time, said this was not a concussion issue, and he got it back out on the field 4 days later where he really got whipped around like a rag doll.
Scary.
And now the scrutiny begins.
Yeah.
Does something need to change, Chris?
Well, the scrutiny is necessary. It's the last thing the NFL wants people talking about, right? When you look at the last few years, the attention that CTE and concussions have gotten, and the NFL has done things to try to eliminate some of that. I think now the scrutiny needs to go to obviously they did fire the independent Miami neurologist that looked at Tua after that first game and said, okay, he's okay. Part of it is the fact that you're dealing with players who are ultra motivated to stay in the game. They're so competitive. Maybe they're worried about losing their job to the backup if they don't play. And I've heard players in the aftermath of what happened to Tua say that there are certain ways you can kind of fool the concussion protocol if you want to get around it, that sort of thing. So I think the awareness needs to be on taking more of this out of the players' hands and just saying, okay, maybe we don't know if he has a concussion right now. I'm talking about the Miami game, the Buffalo game. We don't know if that was a concussion. It looked like he fell and hit the back of his head, but clearly when he got up, he could not walk. And so there needs to be emphasis, I think, and the term I've used is gross motor function, gross motor instability.
I've seen you do some gross motor function.
There are a lot of gross things about me. But I think that's where this needs to go, is it has to go beyond a test of, okay, their brain function following. Like, you have to look at other things. Miami should not, even if he did, I think, pass the protocol, there's no need to put him back in that game.
So not only did he pass the test that they had him undergo at halftime of that Bills game, but then he tested Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of that week. So you can fire the neuro consultant or whoever this independent person is, and who knows if he actually did anything wrong. I know that the NFL, again, is reacting based on the optics, and the optics, of course, look horrible. But I don't know if there's something else that they can do. They have somebody that watches the game, that has the ability to stop play if he sees something like that. Can you go back and say, should he have stopped play then? Sure, but at the same time, you have to understand that, like, there were still 4 days where he cleared all concussion testing between then and Thursday Night Football. Mike McDaniel says that he did not have a concussion. They went over 12-word play calls. There was no sign. He saw no signs. Plus, there was someone that is an expert in the field that said there was nothing. So, Joe Burrow had comments today where he said, it just kind of comes with the game. Yeah. Concussions are part of the game. It is not something that we don't embrace that, but taking the violence out of the sport
is impossible.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Despite all the technology that has made the sport better and the padding and it has lessened the impact, it still is there.
Yeah. I just hope there's not an overreaction now, and every time there's a hit or a play and they stop the game to look at it. Yeah. We see that sometimes. So we'll see where it goes from here.
In college football, Georgia, last couple weeks, maybe a little rattled. Kent State. Did Kent State find some weaknesses in the soft underbelly of the Bulldogs?
With the golden flash, it moved the ball really well. I love and I hate the fact here we have 5 games. College football season's almost halfway over, which is crazy. Yeah. It's my favorite time of year. But we get a good sample size now. We can tell who these teams are. And, Georgia has looked vulnerable in their last – they took care of business against Kent State. Almost lost. Should have lost to Missouri, though.
Yep.
But I still think that they're going to be fine. And you got Ohio State, which is, a lot of people believe, the number 1 team in the country, and they've dominated pretty much everyone except for that first half against Notre Dame. And then Alabama, had a scare against Texas, trying to find some receivers, but really good defense. So you got 4 or 5 teams, I think, that are who we thought they are. Clemson looks great again, by the way. DJ Uiagalelei playing really well now. DJ Uiagalelei.
There it is.
Playing really well. And then you've got some great stories, right? So I love it. I look across the country. You've got UCLA at 5-0. Like
the Fighting Chip Kellys.
Yeah, their quarterback.
Back into relevance.
Their quarterback's been there 16 years and has really gotten into the offense.
It's about time. He's come around.
You got Kansas undefeated. TCU, as we tape the show, undefeated. They're going to play on Saturday. Here's my takeaway from this college football season so far. You got some big powers who are still powerful, but you have more parity than ever, I believe, because of the transfer portal. You got a bunch of teams that have. Ole Miss has 22 transfers on the roster. They're undefeated, and you've got teams that are in smaller conferences that have. The players use their 6th year, their COVID year of eligibility. So you got some veteran rosters out there, and that's why you're seeing these upsets like Middle Tennessee beating Miami, like Marshall beating Notre Dame. There's a lot of parity out there this season. It's made it interesting.
Well, I don't know that I'd go as far as to say there's more parity. I mean, you still have 15 teams, something like that, 14, 15 teams that are still undefeated. The Bamas, the Ohio States, the Georgias are still unbeaten. I'm not as bullish on the future of the Bulldogs because injury is something that is real with this team, and then the turnover issue these last couple of weeks has been a problem. So I don't know, once they get into the meat of SEC play, playing against more quality opponents than Missouri, perhaps there's an issue there.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to be tough.
I think Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, these are the true blue bloods, and these are the teams that as we get into the real meat of conference play, I think we'll see just how much better they are than everybody else. But how about some of the disappointments of college football? Texas A&M, 3-2 with a loss to App State. Michigan State, they have 3 losses already on their schedule. Oklahoma got a couple of losses. Their defense is awful, by the way.
2 Big 12 losses, too.
Miami, 2-2 with a loss to Middle Tennessee. Notre Dame, 2-2 with a loss to Marshall. And of those programs that I mentioned that have had disappointing starts, you got Jimbo Fisher and Mel Tucker that are making $95 million.
Guaranteed,
baby. Oh, life is good if you sign that contract and then you just fade into obscurity.
And then you got guys like Lance Leipold at Kansas, doing it for a couple mil that are just making these guys look bad. Look, it's okay, all can be fixed with winning, right? So if I don't look for it to happen, but if A&M beats Bama again on Saturday, people will forgive and move on. But clearly they've got some quarterback issues he needs to figure out at Texas A&M. And defense has been good, but just a lack of weapons. They've lost their best receiver for the season. I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll find out how rich those Texas A&M boosters are if this thing goes south with Jimbo. $90 million might be nothing to them.
Hey, what do you say we talk a little hockey? We have a Hockey Hall of Famer with us. Very privileged to welcome in the founder of the Lightning. He is, of course, part of the Lightning radio, and it's Phil Esposito, a man who really needs no introduction, but thank you for being here with us today,
Thank
Phil.
you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here with you
Thanks for being here in the flesh, too.
Well, I don't live up the street, boys. I'm not far away from you guys.
Exactly.
It's better than sitting there with stupid pictures on.
Oh, you're telling.
Technology can get the best of us sometimes.
You got that right.
So we are back. I mean, the hockey season is here. Next week it kicks off in earnest. I know that for the players, especially for the Lightning, given the last couple of years and these deep runs into the Cup Finals, that the offseason has not been long enough. What about from your perspective?
Well, as a player, I remember the first Stanley Cup that I won in '70. We were done on May 10th. Because it was around Mother's Day.
Yeah.
The second one, which was in '72, in fact, I wear the '72 ring. We were finished May 19th, again around Mother's Day. Okay.
Do you think that all the postseason that they've played these last 3 years, because it's been talked about, it's essentially an entire
Knocked
extra
a couple of
regular
years
season.
off their career, in
think
my
so?
estimation. You can't keep going through the rigors like they have these last 2 or 3 years. And plus with the pandemic and all of that, man, I give these guys so much credit, honestly. all the hockey players that went through that. I give them so much credit for being able to withstand not even thinking about going out and grab a beer or something, you know?
Right.
Here we are getting into season 30 of the Tampa Bay Lightning franchise, which is just incredible.
Wow.
You know, you were there, ground level, getting this franchise into the Tampa Bay area. Does it seem possible that 30 years have gone by?
Chris, has gone by quickly.
Yeah.
They really have. I remember the first time I came down here to the old Malios to meet a fellow named Henry Paul. His dad was Gabe Paul, who was baseball and trying to get baseball here with Frank Morsani. And I met Henry, Tom McEwen, a guy that owned QYK Radio, and a couple of lawyers. I forgot their names. One was Smith, but the rest of the other guys I don't remember. And I was driving from Orlando because I was down playing golf at Grand Cypress with my buddies from New York, and I got a call from Henry to come down, and he said he wanted to talk to me because I had already put feelers out for Florida for a hockey team. I didn't know where it was going to be. So when Henry came and I drove in, and I went, where are the buildings? There was no building.
Was that your first time to Tampa?
No, I came here as a 21-year-old on my first honeymoon.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
And I stayed, which is now the Trade Winds. It was a Holiday Inn, I think, then.
Yeah.
Is that weird or
That
what?
is- yeah.
But so you come back here to Tampa, and you're like, where am I going to put this hockey franchise?
There was only that round building, the beer can building.
Yeah,
we
the
called it.
the Sykes building, which it is. I don't know what it was called then, but now it's the Sykes
I don't
building.
even know. I call it the beer can building.
It's
That's
fitting.
it. But I
It's
remember
more of a tall boy,
saying,
you know?
how could this area be the 12th largest television market in the country? I didn't realize about Clearwater and Bradenton
Right.
and even Brandon, which was not even incorporated, and all the rest of these places around that made it the 12th largest television market. And when I got through, it was around 11 o'clock at night. I'll never forget this. Tom McEwen said to me, "Don't say Tampa. You say Tampa Bay."
So at that point, when you take on this endeavor, because you have worn many hats as, of course, a player, you've worked front office, you've been a coach, you've done the
Even
broadcasting.
drove the Zamboni.
You
right
drove the
there.
Zamboni. You've done all aspects of this game, and in this phase of life, you are now you're pitching. You're trying to start something. You're trying to raise money. How bizarre was that? Did that come second nature to you, or was that something that you had to learn?
That I had to learn it.
Yeah.
But I was smart enough to put good people around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that understood. Henry,
That's why Scott has me on this podcast.
Oh, okay. That's smart then.
He's the brains.
Right? That's smart. And Henry Paul was a definite. Then a guy named Mel Lowell, who was the chief financial officer of the Madison Square Garden, the round building they called it, and the Knickerbockers and the Rangers. And he got fired just after I got fired, and he went to ADT, and I called him, told him, I says, I'm going for an expansion team. He says, I'm in. He says, where? I says, Florida. He says, are you crazy? I'm not going. You can't put a hockey team in Florida.
It's 90 degrees.
But we play indoors. I mean, the people up north just didn't get it.
No.
I really mean that. It was Henry Paul at the end of that night in Malios. I looked at him and I says, you think hockey could survive in this area? He said, Phil, we love football.
Yeah.
We love boxing. We love wrestling. We love car crashes. Seems to me you got it all in hockey.
Perfect fit. Right.
It's all on ice. Yeah.
And I looked at him and I says, you with me? He said, I'm with you. We shook hands, never had a piece of paper, and to this day, he's still one of my best friends in the world.
Well, this is why there's a statue of him outside Amalie Arena.
The pigeons needed somewhere to go on.
There have been some shaky times early on, especially in the franchise. What do you think was the most pivotal moment in this franchise's history to turn it from the shakiness to a steady future?
I think when the boys from Detroit bought it, with Ronnie Campbell heading it up, Ron did a magnificent job. He did. I think he still lives here, too.
Okay.
He still lives in the Bay Area. And Ronnie's one of the good guys I've met in this game. I think that's when it started to turn. That's when it started to turn, and you can see the light. Because when this character, Art Williams, bought it, it was the worst. These, what do they call the guys from Hollywood? Oren Koulis, I forget what they call them, or whatever they called them. They were nothing compared to this Art Williams.
Yeah.
Nothing. This guy, I got to tell this story. I walk into my office one time, and Teresa Huffman, it was Teresa Payday that was my assistant, and she says, you got to read the facts, because it was a fax.
Right.
I get it, and I go, it's from Art? He says, yeah. The gazelle gets up in the morning and starts running. The lion gets up and starts chasing. If he slows down, the lion gets him and eats it. So go, go, go.
Is that your motivational speech?
That was what he sent me. I mean, this guy was a Looney Tune, I'll tell you right now. And he wanted to go in the dressing room every game to give them a speech. I said, you can't do that. This isn't football once a week.
Especially not that gazelle speech.
Yeah, everything was animal related with that guy.
Well, that was, for me, that was the low point of the franchise. I did get fired by him. He asked me to stay on because I was about to take the ESPN job that Barry took, Barry Melrose.
Okay.
And they asked me to stay. I didn't want to leave here anyway because I love the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah.
I'll never leave here, never. I've been offered positions up north and stuff. Never will I leave here, never. And I just didn't want anything to do with this guy. And I got fired 11:30. My brother and I got fired 11:30 in the morning. At 1 o'clock, I was working for Fox Sports LA.
There you go.
That's a good resume. You know,
I want to go back to something in the
placed.
earlier part of the founding of the franchise, and that's the naming of the Lightning. You know, I think it's, I'm biased, I think it's one of the best names in pro sports, right? It's one of those names that captures something that is a characteristic of the area, and it's just one of the coolest darn symbols, like the coolest logos you'll ever see. So, but from what I've gathered in my research, the Lightning might not have been the name originally. You guys had a fan naming contest, and we kind of know how these goes. Anytime a zoo has a new animal and they let the public name it, it turns out to be something like Rhino McRhino Face or something like that. So you guys, you put it out to the fans, and Oceanics was one of the finalists.
Oh, that would have been awful.
I don't even know.
I don't know why.
That's all I know is I wanted a name without an S on the end.
Because everyone else is like
Everybody
Blackhawks,
else had
Bruins.
an S on the end.
Right. It's a plural.
I wanted it different. I wanted the uniforms to be different. I wanted this underneath. When a guy puts up to score a goal, you see this.
The stripes.
The stripes come out. Yeah. I wanted that. And how the Lightning got named was really, there was Benny Lazar, who's an attorney here. I think he lives down south now a little bit. Anyway, we were at his house on Davis Island. It was July. And we were trying to raise money, and Benny helped bring a bunch of people together, and we were out in his patio, and we were, having a few drinks and stuff to eat and this black cloud out of nowhere formed right over the bay. And Benny's mom, who was probably 85, 86 years old. We were going, and this lightning bolt just went like this, and I went, holy cripe. And she comes out, and I think I can say this on a podcast. She said, you ought to name the team the Lightning. And I went, that's it.
There it is.
That's it. So Mrs. Lazara was the one who it just struck the chord. There was no S on the end. And I fought the Bolts thing.
Yeah.
I did.
Have you come around in recent years?
If I didn't, I mean,
you wouldn't have a choice, right?
You know, the Bolt. You
everywhere.
guys say it on your
Why don't
news.
you like Bolts? Why don't you like Bolts?
Because if I wanted to call it the Bolts, we would have called it the Bolts.
Ends with an S, right?
It
Bolt.
ends in the S, and there's a lot of electric companies got bolts.
Yeah. So it doesn't drive you crazy when you drive around Tampa and see these, 300-foot wide banners that say "Go Bolts"?
It does.
I knew it.
I'll be honest.
They're all coming down today, baby.
I know.
Let's replace them. Can I ask you a little bit about your playing career? Because I think it's interesting how you have, you're part of 3 original 6 teams. You represent old school hockey in so many ways, and yet you have been this kind of a personal bridge into what hockey looks like now in 2022 with a team that is thriving in the state of Florida, maybe a little different brand of hockey than you played. But I want to know from your playing days, who was the toughest person to go against?
Well, the toughest guy I ever fought was John Ferguson. I was a rookie and I just turned 21, and I didn't know he was a tough guy. And,
that's the most dangerous one.
Oh, yeah, and I got into it with him, and holy crap, I was begging for a left hand, for crying out loud. He was hitting me with so many rights. And funny, we got to be real good friends later on in life, real good friends. And but the toughest guy to play against as a center position was Henry Richard. He was small, but he was fast, and he had leverage when he was on the face-off because he was small. And he got real down low. And it was hard to do that, to get the puck. Now, there were times in the in the 60s when I played from 63 to 67 with the Blackhawks, that other centermen would do some nasty things, like they wouldn't even try for the puck. They just go up right in your groin area, you know? And so next face-off, you're sort of, is he going to do that? You know what I mean? But
a little gun shy.
Those were that's the way the game was played back then. And of course, we didn't wear helmets or anything. And I just learned how to deal with that. If a guy tried to do that, then I whacked him across the ankles as hard as I could. Well, if I broke it, I broke it. But he was trying to castrate me. So.
Exactly. Wow.
In a lot of sports, you have like those of the present, kind of the modern era, because of all the training, and it's a year-round sport. And
we
they're
never
competent.
trained.
But they sometimes look back. I know in football, it's like, well, the average NFL player now would have exceeded back then. Baseball, everybody trains year-round. The physique of Babe Ruth is not going to make it in today's game. But would the same be said for hockey, in your opinion?
Do you know why Babe Ruth couldn't make it in today's game? Because they wouldn't give him a chance. Because of the way he looked.
That's probably true. That is probably
true. But I'll bet you any money, if they let him have a chance, he'd still hit the damn ball out of the park.
Yeah.
And there is the problem. If you don't look the part, I mean, there's a kid that has gone to this school to play hockey. It's a prep school. And they worked the craziness out of these kids. If I did that, I would have got sick of it. Mm-hmm. And I think they do the same thing in football. Do you know we weren't allowed to drink water on the bench?
That's wild.
Wow.
That's wild.
I mean, we weren't. They said, oh, it'll cramp you up, so you take those salt pills.
Yeah.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
at the end of the game, you'd lose 8 to 10
How'd you play 18
pounds.
years with this? That's
because I had a little plumpness to me.
had some reserves, huh?
Yeah, you needed it.
A funny story, a guy named Barry Beck got traded from the Colorado Avalanche, or it wasn't the Avalanche, and the Colorado Rockies, to the Rangers. They put him beside me. I'm 38, going into 39 years old, and he's like 21, 22. He was a first pick overall. He was built. Oh my God, I built. He comes in, he introduced him, we talk, and he says, "Will you help me?" I says, "Sure, what do you need?" He said, "Hold my feet, I want to do some sit-ups." So I held his feet on the bench, and he did 150 so fast. And then he says,
"You're like, now do a real one."
No, then he said to me, "Do you want me to help you?" I says, "Do what?" He says, "Don't you do sit-ups?" I said, "Hell no."
Holding your feet down was workout enough.
He said, I'll never forget this. He said, "You don't do anything?" He said, "I don't understand." I said, "Listen, Barry, when they spear me, they got to go through 1.5 to 2 inches of fat to get the muscle. When they spear you, it goes right to muscle."
Yeah.
I played all 80 games that year, 80 games that year. Barry only played 28, pulled his shoulder muscle, pulled his legs muscles.
Too many muscles. I think that's
strategic
I
fat
really
reserves.
believe there should be a little bit. With basketball players and hockey players should have long, lean muscles. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Not bulk.
Yeah.
Football players, maybe even baseball players could have bulk, but I'm not sure hockey players should have bulk.
You started the TB12 thing long before TB12. That's kind of the philosophy, right? The long muscles, the flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility,
Yeah.
which we never practiced. And the truth is, in today's game, speed is of the essence.
Yeah.
In our game, you couldn't go fast because guys would be holding you, hooking you, whatever they could do. One guy had no palm in his glove. So when you stand in front of the net, he just put his glove over top
Grip.
and grabbed the stick.
Wow.
Referees didn't see
I
it.
know.
Shenanigans.
Cracking ankles with sticks.
Goodness.
And I believe you dug up some interesting research that I was unaware of Mr. Esposito.
I do. This is the kind of stuff that happens when you give me an assignment. I look into the interwebs and I find things. So I'm fascinated by this. How close were you to being in The Godfather?
Oh, very close.
Wow.
I mean, really close.
Set the table for us.
Tony Conigliaro
Yeah.
and I flew out to Chicago and did the whole bit. They wanted me to play Carlo, who was married to Talia Shear.
Right.
Shire, yeah.
Which was Connie Corleone, right?
Yeah, Connie. She was
Corleone,
Connie
yeah.
Corleone then. And they offered $5,000, and I had to be off hockey for 6 weeks during
one of your best seasons of your career.
And
This
that
was
was
your
in what, 72, I think?
70 or 71.
71, maybe it was?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, but no. And the ironic thing is, years later, my wife and I, Bridget and I, were in New York. We went into this little bar that I used to frequent when I lived there. And this guy was there, and it's the guy that played Carlo.
Really?
I forgot his name.
Gianni Russo.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I think he had the same suit on.
that he wore in the movie. He was. So, do you ever think about I mean, now that's considered one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
You know, do you ever think about the residual checks you could have cashed if you had
You would have
taken
been
6
an
weeks
enormous
off?
movie star.
Yeah.
That could have launched a complete.
No, hey, listen, I had other chances.
Yeah.
I had other chances. When Alan Thicke was alive, I had a few chances to do 2 or 3 movies. But they always seemed to be during hockey season, and there was nothing more important to me than hockey.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, I think you made the right choice, and,
Well,
and plus
God gave me talent, and I exploited it.
You know, the Carlo Rizzi character too was not you. You're known for your loyalty, your integrity, your
Yeah, I
commitment.
don't
This
know
guy
whether
was
I
this guy was a
could've-
backstabber. He was not you.
Beat up a woman. I can't do.
Yeah.
My wife beats the hell out of me all the time.
You did well. You did well. You got some bit roles later, like on Rescue Me too, didn't you?
I
Dennis
did
Leary's show.
9 or 10 shows with Rescue Me. Dennis Leary and I became real good buds, and still do. He texted during the hurricane a couple of times, and I played one time. I played the coach of the firefighters, where I had to reprimand him. And I'll never forget this scene, and I did. And he says, cut. Come on, Phil. They had to talk to you worse than that. I says, you want me to tell you, I'll do it. I says, but there's going to be a few bleeps. He says, I don't care. Give it to me.
We'll edit those out.
Well, I did. I gave it to him, and after the scene was over, he looked at me. He says, "You scared the shit out of me."
It's because you're a lion, not a gazelle. You know, harkening back to those inspiring words. So, Phil, I want to ask you about this year's team because you lose some key pieces in McDonough and Palat, but the core is intact. What do you think about this team as they get ready to take on another season and bounce back from last year?
They've got the one ingredient that most other teams don't have, and that's Mr. Vasquez.
Right.
He's something to watch, boy. He really is. And it's time for Sergachev to step up. And if he does, look, Ryan McDonough is a great guy and a great player for us. But the cap, the way the cap is nowadays, that wasn't before. And really, if there wasn't a cap, teams like us wouldn't have been able to survive. Really wouldn't. Because Boston's, the Toronto's, they would have paid. I remember that first year, my whole budget was $6 million. The Rangers was 70.
Wow.
Now, how do you compete?
You can't, right?
The cap. You got to have the cap, right?
You got to have the cap.
What player other than Vasilevsky is most critical to the Lightning's success this year?
Cooch.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I see him, though, it's like every time I see him, I'll pass by in the locker room or while walking out to the car or something. He sees me and he gets this little grin. And he doesn't say much, you know, he really doesn't. And I say, when are you going to shoot the puck?
Does he respond?
He just goes,
yeah.
That's him.
Right.
You know, because I told him, I said, look, there's one record of mine that still stands and probably will stand.
Shots on goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
550.
Good. You were firing away down there.
Well, if you don't put the puck on the net, how the hell are you going to score?
Has the Lightning marketing department created a shoot the puck T-shirt yet?
No,
They
I don't
need
know
to.
what
Should
they
have
it
you up in the booth yelling.
I can't help it. When they're in that top of the face-off circles, the circles to the dot, to the net is like a funnel.
Yeah.
You get there, prime location to shoot. Why somebody would give up that beautiful opportunity? And don't get me wrong, the goaltenders are so much bigger now. The equipment is incredibly big, incredibly. My brother's goal pads at the end of the game would weigh 40, 50 pounds because they had cotton and it was soaking wet.
Wow.
And kangaroo leather, okay?
Oh, boy.
Nowadays, those things are so light, and when do they move them around like
They can move so fast.
anything?
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, the game today, I'm not a big fan of, because if the game was meant to be played this fast, the rink would have been 250 feet long by 100 feet wide, not 200 by 85 from the beginning. Because there was always that little interference to slow a guy down. You're telling me Bobby Hull couldn't skate in today's day, or Bobby Orr, or Yvon Cornwallis, or Guy Lafleur, or Mike Bossy. Come on, they can all play in this era with speed. Yeah. If nobody's touching them,
Yeah.
whew, really?
Yeah. Wow. I love, you mentioned shoot the puck. I just love listening to you and Dave on the call because I think you, as the color commentator, you are speaking what the fans are thinking. Like
It would be Chris, you and me sitting beside each other at the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be going,
You
look at that
get
guy.
so frustrated, and when they're sloppy, when they're not passing well, you can just feel it coming through the radio and the microphone. Like you just get so fed up there. And I got to ask though, what you do with Dave when he's about to unleash his goal?
Like
I think he's
it's a
he's
bomb.
channeling like a Mexican soccer announcer, right? And he's going to explode. Like, do you remove the headsets and sit back?
No,
do you
but
cringe? Do you?
I think I'm going to wear hearing aids, though. No, but to tell you the truth, Dave Mishkin follows the game as well as anybody. I worked with Jim Gordon, who was Sam Rosen, and Timmy Ryan and Dan Kelly and all these guys. I worked with them all, but nobody followed the game like Dave does, and he's right on top of it. He really is good at it.
Yeah.
Really good. When the first game, when we scored and he screamed, he did scare the hell out of me. I went,
Are you all right?
Where'd that come from?
Then I did tell him after the game, you know what we should do? We should get an alarm clock where you yelling score. If anybody can sleep through that, that would be a miracle.
Another good marketing idea for the Lightning. The Dave Mishkin alarm clock. That'll get you up, baby.
You won't hit snooze on that. You don't want to hear it go off again.
Well, we're ready for another big season, kicking off the 30th year of the Lightning, and it's all credit to the man right between us, Phil Esposito.
The
Thank you so much.
Godfather of the Lightning.
Yeah,
Yes, he is.
You were destined to be the Godfather one way or the other. So
well, in New York, I play with Donnie Maloney and Donnie Murdoch. They call us the Godfather line. Two Dons and the Godfather.
Perfect.
Meant to
That's
be.
great.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're looking for
Thank
this
you.
season kicking off here next week.
And we won't say go Bolts. We'll
No.
say
No, you can say it.
Lightning.
It just bugs me a little bit, but that's all right.
We don't want to do that.
I've taken a lot of that.
thanks, Phil.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
This has been fun.
The great Phil Esposito. The man has some stories. The great Phil Esposito, always great to catch up with him. He's fun on the call, and he's got a lifetime's worth of stories that are just, you could sit around the campfire with Phil.
That was incredible. Not all of it will fit into this show. We'll have to do some excerpts sometimes.
Enough to fill up about 4 shows. All right, let's bring BK back in. BK, I know you love some of what Phil had to say in that interview, but
Great guy.
Yeah,
Great guy.
he's great. He came in. Most people will only give us their Zoom calls, and yet he wanted to be here in person, and I appreciate that. All right, so you mentioned off the top of the show that there's a Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And that's all we know that we'd be intrigued by.
It's in Rochester, New York. It's the Toy Hall of Fame. There's a Hall of Fame for toys.
Well, there should be.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
You
I've heard
have?
of this.
Well,
yeah.
right now they've just put out their finalist list for the class of 2022. And would you like to hear some of these?
Please.
It's a group of 12.
These are finalists.
These are finalists, so a group of 12, and of this group, they're going to pick out 3. I'm going to run through these.
Only 3 of 12.
Yeah, 3 of 12, so it's like the NFL
Okay.
selection. So, bingo. Bingo.
Okay.
All right.
Is that a toy?
That's a game, I guess. Some of these are games, you know.
Okay.
All right.
Second, Briar horses. I've never heard of, but I think they're little plastic horse
Plastic
things.
horses.
Another one is Catan. It's a
Like the settlers
Yeah,
in
the
Catan?
settlers,
Settlers
yeah.
in-
I never heard of it.
Never played it. I've heard of it.
Light Bright, we've all heard
Oh,
of.
I love Light Bright.
That's good. How's
Yeah.
that not in the Hall of Fame already?
No,
Light
it's
Bright.
yeah.
That's a staple in the 80s.
Nerf ball
Should
Yeah.
already be in the Hall of
should
Fame.
be. I know.
But this is just because it's squishy, right?
I guess
Because
so.
Nerf, I mean, the brand Nerf is, you got Nerf guns, you got all kinds of. If Nerf is able to kind of divest and have all these different subcategories,
Yeah.
then there's going to be a ton of Nerf. in the
Nerf
Hall of Fame.
entries, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it could be Nerf toys, I guess, in general. Masters of the Universe.
Don't
Yes.
know.
So He-Man.
Oh,
Love
He-Man.
it.
Yeah.
By the power of Grayskull.
By the power of Grayskull. My mother would not let me watch that show.
Well, Skeletor was
It was
scary.
a little dark. Yeah.
but oh my goodness, that was awesome. Cringer would turn into Battle Cat. Yeah, let's get that inducted.
Okay.
A game I've never heard of. Phase 10.
I've heard of Phase 10.
Really?
I don't know if I've ever played it,
No.
but if it's a Hall of Fame finalist, then maybe I bring that out the
Yeah,
next
we should.
game night.
Pound Puppies.
Okay.
Pound puppies. Remember those? Yeah, those were
Yeah.
big in the 80s.
My wife says she was a big pound puppy fanatic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a game I've never heard of, but maybe one I'd be interested in. Racco.
That sounds violent.
It's,
What happens in
I
Racco?
don't know.
Stacy
Just want to make sure you will win that game.
I don't think that's
Recco.
That sounded like what Phil Esposito was talking about. I don't think that one's going to make the cut.
Real quick, the final 3. Spirograph, we've all heard of. The Pinata.
Yeah.
Pinata, that's a
course.
toy. And the Top.
Pinata's not a toy.
Okay. All right.
The Top. So that group, who's your 3 real quick?
Pinata's in there. Okay.
Really?
Why?
Yes. Every birthday party is better with a pinata.
But
but it's in a
Pinata
toy?
is useless without stick.
Wait, interesting.
Stick's
you say
already
that.
in the Hall of Fame.
Stick's in the Hall of Fame.
Sticks then.
Well, they should have been inducted
Yeah,
together.
it's like Montana and Rice.
How
okay.
is- wait a minute. Stick is in the Hall of Fame.
Sticks in
Stick
the Hall
is
of
in the
Fame.
Hall of Fame.
It's got to
class
be in the
of
first
2008.
class.
2008.
Like
It was a classic year.
Just a random stick?
That was a classic year in the Toy Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
that the
last year,
top-
Sand made the Hall of
Sand.
Fame.
Yeah.
So-
underrated. essential.
Got a Hall of Fame out in Clearwater.
Top's in. Top's got to be in. Top's not fun, but it's stood the test of time. It is the
the longevity.
The longevity issue. I got Light Bright in there.
Yeah, that's it. I got to have Masters of the Universe. That's got to go.
Yeah.
No,
but Nerf ball. That's got to be it.
Yeah, let's give me Nerf ball. But I need to know if Nerf gun is in, because if Nerf is doing this, I'm really not happy about
that they're
them
trying to submit multiple.
Yeah, right.
Well,
on technicality.
We'll have to check with the board up there with the
When's the final vote?
It comes out in November, so they're meeting right now.
I hope we get to watch it.
Is there a little gold jacket for the top?
There needs to be. Yeah.
It needs to be something.
An induction speech.
There's an actual museum of these things, so that's pretty
Did
cool.
you have a favorite go-to toy when you were a kid?
Oh, it was G.I. Joe. I loved He-Man too.
G.I. Joe's got to already be in, right?
G.I. Joe is one of the early ones.
See, these people have sense. What about you?
Lincoln Logs.
Lincoln Logs
I basically played with sticks.
You are the one who nominated stick.
I played with sticks and I ate dirt. Is dirt in there?
Dirt's not in there. Blanket's in there.
Yeah.
Bag of broken glass.
That's not in there. I didn't make the semifinal list.
The stinky blanket is a staple for most kids.
Or adults in some cases.
You still have a stinky blanket at your desk, don't you?
I do. I'm going to go to it now and cry into it.
That's his nickname. Chris Stinky Blanket Cato.
Well, that was good. I can't wait to see who makes it. Maybe you'll update us here in a couple weeks.
Very good.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, BK. Hey, fun show. Again, we reminded you off the top, but if you would like to get involved both physically or financially to those communities that have been most affected by Hurricane Ian, we invite you to check out the state
State Disaster Relief Fund.
Disaster Relief Fund at volunteerflorida.org. And if you'd like to watch the full-length podcast, you are also welcome to watch fox13news.com/nodpod. Hit the QR code that's on the screen as we speak. Subscribe where all podcasts are available. And, of course, you can find the show on all the socials as well. For Chris Cato, for BK in the booth, for myself, my name's Scott. Stinky Blanket. Until the next time we're on, there are no off days.
And don't say go Bolts.
That's right. He might come after you.